You're listening to episode 55 of Burning Brightly, 5 Ways Your Brain is Sabotaging Your Goals. This is Burning Brightly, a podcast for Christian moms who are feeling called to build a business and share their light with the world. I'm Bonnie Wiscombe, a life coach, mom, and entrepreneur, and I'm honored to be your guide as you face this business building adventure full of highs, lows, and everything in between. This is where we help each other find the courage to shine. Welcome back, friends. Today, I've got a special episode for you. This is the audio taken from a presentation that I gave recently, and I think it's so important that I wanted to reuse it for the podcast because this is going to teach you a lot about your brain, how it functions, why it does the way it does, and why it sometimes causes trouble in entrepreneurship. We would like to think that our brain is on our side when trying to accomplish great things and build businesses and reach our goals. But unfortunately, that's not always the case because our brain's number one role is always survival. So let's dive in and take a look at how the brain works, where it might get in the way, and how to prevent that as we build our goals and dreams. Heads up, you can also watch the video, including slides to this presentation on my YouTube channel. The link to that is in the show notes. Let's do it. Hello, my friends. Welcome to my presentation about the 5 ways that your brain is unintentionally sabotaging your dreams and goals and things that you really want to go for and to really make your life a better life, right? So I am a business coach. I'll introduce myself in just a second. So a lot of what I talk about applies to business and building small businesses, especially online businesses. But this all applies to really any dream or goal you have in your life because all of us have dreams. All of us want things to be better and greater and maximize our potential in life. So anything that you are dreaming about, running a marathon or climbing a mountain or retiring yourself or your spouse early, anything that you can dream about, this presentation is going to apply to. Okay? All right, so here's a quick introduction to me. My name is Bonnie Wiscombe. I am a life coach and a mom to a million children. I also homeschool them, so lots of busy stuff and craziness going around. Hopefully you don't hear screaming in the background. I try to keep it to a minimum. But I've been a business owner for over 10 years. I've been a blogger, an e-commerce owner. I've designed and manufactured things internationally and domestically, have a lot of business experience, and now I am both a life and business coach. A lot of what I'm teaching today is going to apply to all life coaching. I'm going to teach you the life coaching model and how it can apply specifically towards reaching your goals and dreams, but it really applies to solving any problem in your life. So you can use this for lots of different areas. And I personally specialize in supporting women entrepreneurs, especially moms that are stay-at-home moms and want to build businesses like myself. So this is what you can expect in this presentation. I'm going to give you a brief overview of the brain. I'm not a neuroscientist or neurosurgeon or anything scientific like that, but I do have a broad overview of the brain so we can understand how and why the brain works the way it does and the problem with entrepreneurship or chasing any sort of big goal or dream. The brain doesn't always like it. We'll talk about that in a second. Then we're going to talk about how to control the narrative that your brain comes up with because our brain is the source of all accomplishments or failures in our life, regardless of what comes at us. Our brain can choose what to make it mean. So we're going to show you how to flip that script when it makes it mean something that doesn't apply to you or doesn't serve you, and then to go out and build our dreams anyway. And then we're going to talk about these 5 emotions that tend to get in the way. They are fear, overwhelm, frustration, blame, and playing small. And these come up in any sort of dream or goal that we are building. And I'm going to show you how to conquer them. Okay? Now, the first thing I need to teach you is something called the motivational triad. If you have done a psychology class or learned about the brain at all, especially the survival brain, you may have heard of this before. And essentially what it is it's how our brain has survived for thousands of years, okay? There are 3 main reasons that we stay alive, 3 main purposes of that survival brain. It's to seek pleasure, so it looks for things that feel good. It tries to avoid pain, right? Stays away from the things that are going to hurt us. And it does so by conserving as much energy as possible. So what that looked like for our ancestors, the cavemen, right, would be seeking food, sex, sleep, anything that felt good, right? All those things are going to perpetuate the species, keep us alive. It looked like avoiding pain, like the edge of a cliff or a tiger or running barefoot through cacti, right? We were avoiding pain to keep us alive. And then we were conserving those precious calories that required a lot of energy to get. All right. Now, the problem with the motivational triad today in our modern society is that survival is so much easier. So very often, seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, conserving energy actually goes in opposition with a lot of the dreams that we are headed towards, the goals we want to accomplish. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Now, it's important to understand two main areas of the brain. There's actually four major ones: the cortex, limbic system, the midbrain, and the brainstem. But we're just going to talk about the cortex and the brainstem today. All right. So, first of all, the brainstem, as you probably know from high school biology, is what controls all the autonomous stuff: breathing, heart rate, blood pressure, our body temperature, these important things that keep us alive. And we cannot control them consciously. All right. Our brain and body takes care of that for us. Thank goodness. The cortex is the higher brain. That is what makes us human. It controls language and critical thinking, creativity, abstract thought, executive function. It's what allows us to have goals and dreams and to build businesses and to do everything that is innately human. All right. Now, this survival brain, like I said, is what keeps us alive, and the cortex is what makes us human. And sometimes they don't always work together. And this is why. When stimulus comes at us, it enters the brain from the bottom up. So the brainstem always reacts first. And this is, again, a very important survival mechanism. Okay. For example, if you step into a street and a car comes at you, your brainstem will cause you to jump out of the way before your cortex ever thinks, I should move, because the cortex is slower, right? And we want our reactions, our instincts to keep us out of danger as quickly as possible before we ever take the time to think about it. This is actually why trauma is so devastating, because trauma rewires the brainstem and it helps keep us safe in very unsafe scenarios. For example, in war, or when we're being abused or treated unfairly, our brainstem will rewire in a way that keeps us on alert much more often than normal, because our lives or safety have been threatened. Okay. So take, for example, a man who has been in war and been shot at and seen cars explode. If he comes home and fireworks go off, he's going to dive under a car. It's not because his cortex is thinking that the fireworks are gunfire. It's because his brainstem is already reacting quickly and instinctually to keep him safe. Later on, when his cortex comes back online, he'll go, why am I under a car? Oh my gosh, this is so embarrassing. What did I, right? He understands that that's not appropriate, but his brainstem was doing its job first to protect him because it had been rewired to know that those loud sounds were a danger to his survival. It's actually fascinating and so powerful. Our brain is an amazing machine, but sometimes it gets in the way of our goals and dreams. Obviously, that man no longer wants to react in that way when he is safe at home, but the brainstem takes time to rewire. Okay. What this also means when it comes to our goals and dreams and building businesses is that when we purposely do anything that puts us into uncomfortable or unsafe situations, our brain doesn't differentiate between physically unsafe and emotionally unsafe. So the brainstem will want to escape from these unsafe places, even though the cortex is like, no, I want to do this, right? So when the nervous system gets activated and tries to keep us safe, that higher brain doesn't work so well. So this is the problem with entrepreneurship or dreaming and goal setting. We are purposely putting ourselves in scary, awkward, painful, unsafe situations, and our brainstem doesn't like it. It's thinking, get me back to safety, get me back to safety. Okay. So a few examples that come up just in business building, because this is what I coach about all the time, are like speaking publicly. Even here, recording this presentation with no one watching me, my nervous system is a little bit activated. My palms are a little bit sweaty. My heart rate is a little bit up because I'm putting myself as an expert, separating myself from the crowd, right? So public speaking activates your nervous system in that way. Maybe even let's talk about just at work. Maybe you are in a position of management and you have to give some negative feedback to an employee that's underneath you. Nervous system will be activated, right? Because you're separating yourself from the herd, and you are potentially going to have a fight or flight reaction if this person kind of attacks you back, right? So think about all the things that we do in our life that are hard and challenging on purpose because we want to further our career or build a business or climb a mountain. But our brainstem kind of panics because it feels scary. Totally normal. Acknowledging this is so powerful, because then when we feel those negative emotions of like the adrenaline and the palms sweating and the heart rate, we can go, oh yeah, that's totally normal. Because right now my brainstem thinks I'm in danger, but I know I'm not. I know I'm totally safe here sitting in front of my computer. I am sharing my knowledge, and this is part of who I want to be as a business owner, right? And an expert on coaching, and it's all going to be okay. Okay. Very, very fascinating stuff. So remember, our brain is going to react first and think second. So The stimulus comes in, the brainstem reacts, a fight or flight. Not always, right? Only when we feel unsafe. And then that higher brain will kick in with the rational thought. So be aware of that when you feel those instant reactions and you think, what is it about this situation that my brain thinks is unsafe? Just take a look at that, right? What's going on here? Why am I worried about this? Something in my brain thinks that bad things are going to happen to me. So, like I said before, this worked really well for our ancestors. Today, it gets in the way of our dreams because we no longer have to fight so hard to survive. We're pretty dang easy. We get up and we go to work and we come home and we pay our bills. So, if we're starting to get uncomfortable, acknowledge that it's probably just because we're headed towards our dreams. Now, here's a very important thing to remember as we go through this process of becoming better and reaching for something hard. And it is that the only reason we ever take action is to feel better. All right. So think about the last 3 or 4 things that you did, whether it's getting a cup of coffee or taking a nap or coming home from work or whatever. You did those things because you thought they'd make you feel better in some way. Emotions drive everything. All right. They're very, very, very important. So we're going to talk a little bit about emotions and how they are going to drive us towards or away from our dreams and goals. Okay. So now we're going to talk about this super useful tool that is called the life coaching model. And it's referred to by a bunch of different terms, but the one I'm going to teach you today, the name I'm going to teach you today, is called the head, heart, hands model, because I think it's really, really easy to remember. There are other ones that use a bunch of different acronyms, but this one's very simple. So the way the model works is it shows us what our cortex does, what that higher brain does when it gets any sort of stimulus. So now that we've moved through the lower brain and our higher brain is online, thinking about what's happening to us, processing how we're going to reach these goals, it goes through a few steps. The first thing is the stimulus comes at us, right? Maybe it's somebody shows up and says something, or maybe it's a certain reaction we get in our business or work, or maybe it's the result of some training we're doing for a marathon that we're running or something. The head makes this stimulus mean something, right? It's going to give us a thought, spit some sort of thought out about it. The heart is then going to create an emotion. It's not really the heart, it's the brain, but this is how we remember it. We think of hearts as emotional things, right? So the heart step is creating an emotion. After this thought happens, thought, emotion, and then the hands get to work taking action or sitting in inaction based on the emotion. And then the very end is we get some sort of result spits out after that. Okay. Now, this kind of seems confusing, but I'm going to give you several examples so you can take a look at it. The reason this is important is because, like I said, everything we do, all the hands part, comes because we're feeling something or we want to change what we're feeling. All right. So by diving into our thoughts and our feelings and our actions, we can change the result of our life by taking a look at some of these thoughts and emotions. All right. And we're going to take a look at those 5 ways that our brain likes to sabotage us, plopped into each of these models. Okay. So the first one we're going to talk about is fear. This is the brainstem's favorite job, right? When we feel unsafe, almost without exception, the first emotion is fear. Shoot, something bad's going to happen, right? Whether that's physical danger, emotional danger, our brain kicks in and spits out some fear. So when building businesses, a lot of the things that I talk to my clients about are the fears that we have in our business, like worried about losing money or being embarrassed by something we do or failing. Maybe we have some dreams, and if we fail at them, we're going to lose those dreams and those goals. Maybe we're going to build a business that doesn't honor our values, right? And this applies to any dream or goal that you have. We're afraid of lots of things. Totally normal, totally human nature. Okay. Again, not physical fear, or not fear of physical danger, but fear of negative emotional danger. So let's plop fear into that model I just taught you and show you how it plays out in our brain. All right, let's take the example of investing money in a business. Let's say you want to build a business and you're going to have to put in $5,000 to get this business started, okay? And that is not a small amount of money to you. So the stimulus, the circumstance is investing the money, and your brain makes it mean something scary, right? You choose to think, I could lose all this money. That's what comes up for you when you think about investing this money. I could lose $5,000. The emotion that comes from that, for me, would be fear. Probably for most people, from that thought, I could lose all this money, would feel fear. And then when you feel fear, what kind of action do you take? Very often, for me personally, I take 0 action out of fear. Instead, I just kind of curl up in a ball in the corner and eat chocolate or do something else to make myself feel better. Maybe I don't invest the money, or maybe I invest it and then I play it super safe, with the strategy that makes sure that I'm not going to lose the money. Or maybe even I invest the money and I just fully expect to fail and lose it. And the result of these actions or inaction might even be that I lose the money or that I don't succeed in my business the way I want to because I'm playing it so safe. So isn't this fascinating how this one thought I could lose all this money actually very often yields a result that makes that thought true? I do lose the money, or I don't, or my business doesn't succeed in the way I want it to because I hold myself back because of the fear. Like it's all tied together, right? Isn't that fascinating? So when we need to move confidently forward towards our goals or our dreams, we need to watch out for fear because fear will hold us back. It wants to keep us safe, totally part of its job. The brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to be doing. Don't be mad at it, but be aware of it because that fear will keep us stuck. All right. So fascinating. Now, we'll get into a little bit of the solution for this, but the awareness is the number one thing to pay attention to. Okay. Being aware of what our brain is doing first. And then we can start to journal a little bit and pay attention to these thoughts that are coming up and causing the fear. Are they true? Could you lose all this money? Sure, you could. Do I want to keep thinking that all the time and feeling lots of fear? Probably not. What else could be true? Maybe I could lose the money, but I'm going to try it anyway. Or I could also build an amazing business that I'm really proud of, right? So we just kind of toy with that thought a little bit and see if we can loosen its hold on us. All right, let's move over to overwhelm, another huge one that I see in my clients all the time when they are trying to build a business. There's just this to-do list a million miles long, or there's all this software they have to learn and they're confused about it. This is what I call the brain's escape hatch. Okay. It's when you're feeling stressed out, like you have this long to-do list, by feeling overwhelmed, you get to just sit and do nothing. You've escaped the pressure of the to-do list. You're just going to sit and feel overwhelmed. It's an excuse, right? To just stop working. I like to call it an indulgent emotion because it really isn't necessary, but sometimes it feels useful to just sit and feel overwhelmed, even though I'm not actually doing anything. Okay, so watch out for that one. It's also often an umbrella emotion. So underneath overwhelm, there's also very often stress, frustration, worry, other things hidden under that overwhelm, but we can't see them because I'm just overwhelmed. I don't even want to look at it, right? So watch out for that one. So let's plop this one into the model and take a look at what it means. So let's say we have a to-do list that is longer than usual. Okay, maybe we normally have 4 or 5 things on our to-do list, and today we have 12. Okay, so to-do list. The head comes up with, I will never get anything done, right? The overwhelm thoughts are always real whiny in my brain anyway. I don't know about you. I'll never get everything done. Heart comes online and just feels overwhelmed, overwhelmed, overwhelmed. That's what comes from that thought for me. My action is, again, very often inaction. I freeze, I stall, I procrastinate like nobody's business. I get distracted or I just do nothing, right? For me, when it comes to overwhelm, very often I take action in something completely unrelated. So I'll have a list a mile long in my business, but I'll go organize a closet or something stupid because it feels useful, but it allows me to stay away from that scary to-do list that's causing me overwhelm. Okay. And then the result, well, the to-do list stays undone. Nothing actually gets done because I'm just spinning, procrastinating, stalling, doing anything but taking a look at this to-do list. And why? Because that head came up with, I'll never get everything done. Well, yeah, that's a pretty self-defeating thought. That thought is going to cause overwhelm 100% of the time. So just a few options to look at. What if we just said, wow, this is a long to-do list. I wonder how long it's going to take me to get it done. Right? Do you see that major shift in energy? I'll never get everything done too. I wonder how quickly I could get this done, or I wonder how long this is going to take me. Shifts into curiosity instead of overwhelm. And then with curiosity, our brain wants to take action. Yeah, I wonder if I could time myself. I wonder if I could get it done before lunch. I wonder what I could get done first. What would be the quickest thing on this list, right? You just kind of start poking at those thoughts and seeing if you can find one that feels a lot better than I'll never get anything done. All right, so moving on to number 3, and that is the feeling of frustration. Very common when we are trying to reach a goal. Let's take a physical fitness goal, because I know a lot of friends that want to, like I said, run a marathon or climb, do an amazing hike down the Grand Canyon or go river rafting or something that really stretches themselves physically. Well, in your training and your preparation for a physical goal like that, there's going to be some setbacks, right? Almost always. Maybe you get sick. Maybe your kids need you and you aren't able to train like you anticipated, or something else happens. Your race is delayed or something. So you're going to have reality not always match up to your expectations. And that's where frustration sets in. Okay. There's a mismatch that happens in every aspect of our life where reality doesn't match up to our expectations, right? So we feel frustrated. This, just like all the emotions, is very optional. You can have reality not meet your expectations and actually choose something else, which we're going to take a look at in a second. Frustration also comes from dwelling on the past or what should be, right? So let's say you're running a marathon and you twist your ankle and you have to push back your training. In fact, you even have to skip that race you were planning on and not do another one for another 3 months. Feels frustrating, right? Feels like the only emotion you can feel. When in reality, there is no should. Your ankle needs healing. What you should do is rest until that ankle's healed. Okay. So accepting that reality is going to allow you to just let that frustration move right through you. Just personally, in my own personal life, I have a bunch of kids. I have 9 kids at home right now. I deal with frustration every single day because the way my kids show up and live their life is not how I would do it. And I love to be in control. All right. So I have to actively watch out for those frustrating thoughts that, why did they leave this here? Why did they make this mess? Why are they screaming again? And just acknowledge this is the way they are. Kids scream and fight, and kids leave messes, and kids do things that I like to think are frustrating, but it's what they're doing. And this is reality. How am I going to step into accepting it? So let's drop frustration into this model. What does it look like? All right. So we've got an unexpected outcome. Let's go back to our marathon example. Okay. Sprained ankle. Your brain says it shouldn't be this way. I was supposed to run the marathon next month. I shouldn't have to put it off for 3 months, right? I get it. It's a loss of dreams. That is understandable, and it's totally okay to be sad about it. But the frustration very often puts us in kind of a more negative energy than just being sad. So when frustration pops up, the action we take is very often not very useful. I like to beat my head against the wall, metaphorically, and just why? Why is it like this, right? Stress and worry about it never happening. Maybe I'll never run the marathon, or living in the past. Oh, if I just hadn't twisted my ankle, if I just paid attention, if I hadn't stepped in that pothole or whatever happened. You live in the past all the time with regret. It's a very kind of yucky, negative energy. Okay. Now, if we can go back and think, gosh, I'm bummed about this thing, right? Allow yourself to feel sad about it. But the frustration is optional. I want to feel sad that I twisted my ankle and I'm not going to meet my goal of the marathon in that time frame. And I also want to look at, I'm so glad I get to still do it, right? Maybe it will actually be even better. Try to find some pros to this new reality. Maybe it will actually be even better because the weather will be cooler. It'll be really nice to run in October instead of August. Right? There's pros and cons to everything that comes at us. It's just up to our brain to decide what we want to make it mean. All right. So watch out for that frustration. All right. So fourth emotion is blame. You guys, this one is a hard one for me. And this one I call the release valve for shame. Okay. So does anybody have an Instant Pot or a pressure cooker? When you turn that thing on, the pressure rises inside until it's basically like a ticking time bomb. That's what happens with shame for us. Shame is a very poisonous emotion, and it makes us feel really bad. So if there's any reason to feel shame, our brain's natural default is to release that shame by pointing fingers at someone else. We're like, oh, this feels icky. Oh, it's his fault. It's her fault. That allows us to release some of that shame and instead point fingers at somebody else, which also doesn't feel awesome, but to our brain, it feels better than shame. So watch out for this one. And what it does is it creates unnecessary conflict in the workplace, at home, within our families and friend relationships, right? And it turns into this kind of pass the buck thing. So blame is just very, very rarely useful. And a real leader, no matter where you are in your life, I think most of us want to be leaders. A real leader takes responsibility when things go wrong, even if it's not entirely our fault. And I think this is especially true in families. When we're the adult in a family, we have to take responsibility for things that aren't always our fault. Welcome to parenthood, right? So let's take a look at blame in a model. Let's take the example of a kid making a mess at home. Anybody got kids at home that make messes? All right. So a kid dumps a gallon of milk. Have you guys ever had this happen? I have. Dumps a gallon of milk, literally the whole gallon, or like the vast majority. And my thought is, this is not my fault. I wasn't watching this kid. It was supposed to be my husband, or the babysitter wasn't paying attention, or who left the fridge open, right? So instead of thinking, gosh, I should have put that milk away, I want to pass the buck to somebody else because it feels so much better than blaming myself. And then I feel blame towards somebody else. and then I'm criticizing and maybe I'm gossiping about the other person and I'm avoiding solving the actual problem. So that's very important to watch out for how blame is trying to keep us safe by avoiding that shame, right? You can say this isn't my fault, but I want to be part of the solution and not the problem, right? So you don't have to take responsibility for something that's not your fault, although it does make it easier to just at least assume the responsibility that is due yours, right? Like I could say, you know what? Maybe I should have put the milk on a higher shelf. Or now we know that this kid likes to make messes with gallons of milk. We're going to put solutions in place in the future. Maybe we need to get a lock on the fridge to solve this in the future instead of blaming those around you. All right, final one when it comes to dreams and goals, and that is dreaming small. So you wouldn't think that if you have a big goal or a dream that you would purposely dream small because you're trying to accomplish this thing, right? But what I've noticed is our brain does this again to keep us safe and away from that negative emotion. So when you constantly put, or at least regularly put your brain in these unsafe, dangerous situations, your brain wants to avoid them. So let's say that when I come into my office to work on my business, I feel a lot of like maybe embarrassment or worry that people are going to reject what I'm putting out there. My brain is going to start avoiding my office. It's going to start dreaming small and saying things like, are you sure you want to get on Instagram and share that thing? Because somebody made a comment about it last time that you didn't like, right? So your brain starts to pull back and tell you, let's stay safe by staying outside and doing something else. All right. And it often uses good things as excuses. So, like I said, I coach a lot of moms that are trying to build businesses, and very often they'll use their family as an excuse. And obviously, we want our family to be a priority. I personally try really hard to keep my kids and my husband a priority in my life. But when I find my brain going to, oh, my kids really need me, I can't work on my business today or tomorrow because family, right? It tends to be not in keeping with my goals. I'm using that as an excuse, but it feels like a good excuse, right? Because family is important. So kind of watch out for that. It is your brain trying to protect you by dreaming small or being busy with things that don't actually matter. All right, so this is what the model for playing small looks like. Maybe you have an opportunity to start a business. Maybe you've been thinking about it for a long time and all of a sudden this thing pops up and your head says, it's not the right time. It's not meant to be. My kids are still little. I still have a 9 to 5. My husband won't support me, right? Any number of things that's going to keep you safe right here without the business instead of doing the scary thing, right? So your heart might feel resigned or just kind of like giving up, right? And then your action will be you just stop dreaming. You don't take action on that goal. You abandon projects, make excuses, and then maybe consequently you start to feel like a victim a little bit. I never get to do the things I want to do because we didn't take action. All right. And then the result is we miss out on that opportunity, which is so sad. And I'm not saying that every time an opportunity comes up that we like, we should jump on it. Depends on whether or not it's the right time for us. But just watch out for this playing small protection that our brain does in order to keep us from feeling that negative emotion. All right. Now, final thing I want to teach you guys. Every time we take action, there is a result. And that it becomes evidence for the thought that we thought in the beginning. Okay. Now, when we want to do something new, set a goal, make a dream, build a business, whatever, we don't see evidence that it's possible for a long time. So if I'm training for a marathon, it might take me 6 months or a year. And that entire time, I'm not even going to know if it's possible for me to run a marathon until I actually get to the race and do it. All right. So for that 6 months and a year, I have to just go on faith and belief. I just have to keep hoping that it's possible. Now, for something like a marathon, it's relatively easy because we see people around us doing it all the time, right? But we personally have never actually done it. So it does require some belief. Building a business sometimes is even harder because nobody has built a business exactly how we want to build ours. So just be aware of that it's going to take a lot of faith and belief until you actually start seeing evidence. Once you've run the marathon, once you get a client or your business is making some money, then it becomes a lot easier to believe that this is a possibility because you've got some evidence to believe it, all right? Without the evidence, it is difficult at the beginning. You have to keep nurturing that belief. Okay. So these are the 2 ways that we are going to make sure that our brain is not going to sabotage us in our dreams and goals. Okay. We're going to be aware of it. We're going to stay super curious. Try these models at home. Start doing a journal of your thoughts and feelings, right? So if you have a thought or a feeling about a goal that you're working on, write them all down. Write all the thoughts that are coming up for you and stay really curious and non-judgmental because your brain is thinking those things for a reason, as we've seen. to protect you, to keep you safe. Be really understanding and compassionate with yourself. Interesting. I wonder why my brain is coming up with this thought. It must think it's serving me in some way. Do I want to keep it? How could I think something different that's also very believable? How could I make progress in this way? All right. And then we have a couple of tools. Like I said, the head, heart, hands model that I taught you, very powerful. Try journaling and try coaching. Write it down, put it in a journal or something. It can be very, very helpful. So that is what I have for you guys today. I hope that was helpful. It's a lot of information, but it is really, really life-changing if you can start to analyze your thoughts and how they're either helping you reach your goals or keeping you back from reaching your goals. Thanks so much for being here, and go out and accomplish those dreams. Are you ready to start or grow your dream business? Click the link in the show notes to download the free starter guide to building a business or to schedule a free coaching call with me. And if you loved this episode, don't forget to leave a review and share it with a friend who might be feeling the call to burn a little brighter.